Looks like Exorcist is still holding on and Vanquish Soul is riding behind on the metagame competition. Don't be like 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. We're going to be covering double OCG events here. The first one here, you have a very nice pie chart here in terms of your diversity. You have one Exosister deck. When we get into list here, you'll definitely see some of the ideas that are kind of being presented here with this, which has put this deck in a very interesting position. Runner-up here was actually Vanquish Soul, with Vanquish Soul versus Exosister matchup. That's not exactly something that I thought I would be talking about today. We also had Pendulum Magicians. Yes, Pendulum Magicians sporting off a whole lot of different cards that we don't quite have. And then bringing up the rear here is actually Purrely. Now, Purrely has been projected to be like the best deck post OCG ban list, depending on how Nexus begins to shape things up here. We'll start to see a little bit of differences in terms of, those formats, but very interesting to see these results. Let's pass on over to deck list. Winning our event here was none other than Exosister, actually sporting off the Spirit Package in here. We have seen the Spirit Package actually be a huge aid to this deck. The fact that the Spirit Package facilitates additional normal summons, honestly, the fact that you can just drop a Spirit monster, go ahead, make an Exceed, go ahead and then go search for Martha to go ahead and get the extension up so you can start setting up for the Magnifica, really has put this deck in a little bit more of a unique position. Now, post-ban list, this deck did lose one of its better matchups. You do see that we still are playing Ptolemaeus, the whole diamond shenanigans in here. You may as well still take advantage of that package in case, you do run into one of the few tier players that is still on huge amounts of hopium trying to still play the deck. I do see that we are playing Kaijus, a very small Bysteel package, and some Dimensional Fissures down here to try to, control whatever remains really of the meta. So it looks pretty straightforward to me. Next up here we have Vanquish Soul. Now, straight off, you'll notice the fact that we play two of the big boss monster for this. We are playing the one Divine Carnate. Keep in mind that because of limitations and things, we do see that Cashier has been dramatically reduced in terms of its power in the OCG. Now, for what this deck still aims to do, your max C synergy with, Visor, King is still pretty good. The fact that you'll still be able to set up huge monster lap your opponent, but you are a lot more hand trapped out of your mind here. The extra use that you get through the hand traps to help this deck out is very nice. You still play triple stake your soul. I do like the use of the there can only be ones in here. It kind of puts a little bit of pressure on your opponent, and when you're in a lot more of a wide open meta and you're afraid of Purrely, there can only be one is definitely a very big card. Next up here, we have Pendulum Magicians. Oh boy. Looking at this extra deck is so amazing to me because they still have double Starving Venom Dragon, which allows this deck to just generic contact fusion up two good cards, go ahead and put a big monster on the field, and you can start copying, key effects that you need. It really amazes me that they still get away with this. They also have Electromite and Beyond the Pendulum as well. So Pendulums do get the chance to do things. The problem is Pendulum is not been in the best position here. Pendulum really does struggle to kind of keep up with some of these larger boards that kind of have been produced, even though like pendulums require a great amount of advantage to start swinging the pendulum, pun intended there. But overall, I think that this build feels very solid. I like a lot of the tech choices that we've got going here, and it feels a lot more refined than a lot of the other versions of this build that we've seen. And then we also have our Purrely deck. Now, this list is opting to play the Shaddoll package in it. We've said before, you're either going to dedicate the build towards the volcanic shells to generate the advantage. You're either going to start snowballing things with like Dark World Brows to generate the advantage, or in this case, you can use a mini Shaddoll package to start dropping out cards, get a little bit more deck thinning, set up some monsters. You can try some different extra deck modeling depending on what you want to do here. but everything that you've kind of got for you here is very, very straightforward. It's not like Purrely is a really hard deck to play. A lot of the boards that you build are pretty straightforward. It's just how much draw power can you get through, how much advantage can you set up, how fast can you start snowballing that advantage, and simply does the opponent have the out to the Nor. If the opponent does have the out to the Nor, well, you're probably going to have an incredibly bad day, but that's overall honestly the Purrely experience. We're going to pass it over to Tournament 2 here. Now this tournament tells a much different story here. We have Purrely actually taking the lead here. Now, Purrely, like I said at the beginning of this video, was projected to be one of the better decks in the room. The fact that you can make a boss monster that your opponent can't actually really out. I mean, Herald of the Abyss, Exceed Encore, to those of you that are like, Exceed Encore works. It affects the materials underneath the monster. That's why you could Exceed Encore Rongo Reminiat and actually split it apart, because the card, even though it says unaffected, that's a Konami said so ruling. It's not much we can really do about that. We also have Labyrinth coming up here on the back. Very, very interesting to see Labyrinth still kind of holding on. And then we also have a Bestial variant of Despia here, actually getting the chance to showcase some power. So once again, I like what we're seeing here. Very, very semi-diverse meta on the second tournament. Very, very nice. Let's pass on over to list. To no surprise, Purrely ended up winning this event. Now, you are going to notice in here that there's no volcanic shells. There's no Shaddoll package. You're going to notice 3 little Droll Lockbirds in here, though. Those Droll Lockbirds are going to be acting as cards to stop the opponent from kind of snowballing advantage. I will say that typically when Droll Lockbird seems to get involved in the format, it really does seem to be a little bit of a menace. I see that we are we are main decking some Dark Ruler No Mores, so we can go ahead and split across the opponent's monster. We also have Talents in the main deck. Talents in this deck is an absurd card, especially if you can bait your opponent on one of your Purrely cards for a hand trap, and then go ahead and Talents continue on into, you know, the cycle of generating advantage. It is very, very good. Extra deck feels very, very standard. I like the IP play. The things you can do with IP Masquerade in this deck actually is kind of hilarious. So, very interesting. Next up here, we have our Despia Branded deck. Now, this deck has Magna Hut limited to 1. Same thing with Druisworm and Lubellion. So your package has been pretty much reduced. Now, it's not to say that, you know, you still can't do things, but with 1 branded fusion, you really do kind of got to ask the question, how much consistency can we kind of start to spoon out here and see what we can start to generate? We do have Quem in here, which is a fantastic addition for the deck post next set. Fusion deployments really do, honestly, you do kind of have to play the fusion deployments. They make this deck a lot better. Unfortunately, once you have branded fusion, you know, limited to 1, there's not a lot that you can really do about that, but deck looks pretty standard outside of that. 1 branded in red, 1 branded in high spirits. I can't really think of anything else that feels like it should be improved, because this deck, it feels incredibly streamlined at this point for what you want to see. So, how does Labyrinth look for the OCG? That is double Chaos Angel down there in the side deck. Full honesty here, Chaos Angel is an absurd card. It helps out this deck so much. The fact that you can tune, you know, your generic level, you can make any light or dark monster a tuner to bring out the level 10, which is insane. We are also playing, I kid you not, Rise to Full Heights down there in the side deck. That's not something that I thought I would see Labyrinth players trying out, but I like that. You've got the Eradicator, the Deck Devi, the Dimensional Barrier, all the one-up traps in the main deck that you will want access to are there. We are playing the Temple of the Kings. Temple of the Kings in this deck is so strong. I wish more people would try it out, but we've already seen like a relatively huge metagame shift here where Labyrinth's already falling off on our side of the game. So we'll have to wait and see if that's just something that'll stick around, but I digress. We'll have to wait and see. Next up here, we have our next version of Purrely. Now this is a little bit more extreme. We're playing the Shaddoll in here. We're playing 2 copies of Brow. And then since we're playing the 1 Crossout Designator, we're playing the 1 copy of Crossout Designator, 1 Droll Lockbird, and 1 Ash in here. Our hand trap ratio feels very weird, but I think that's fine. We're also side decking the Vanity's Fiends in here. do not underestimate how good Vanity's Fiend is in this deck, because post side deck, that card becomes a monster, and your opponent's going to look around and go, what in the world am I supposed to do about this? The answer is not much. That is your wrap up on these two events. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.